The following is a production of River Park Foundation, dedicated to expanding understanding.
And that was the beginning of her coming back. Okay.
The beginning of the beginning.
The beginning of the beginning. That really does say it, doesn't it?
It does, Dad. I can really relate to a lot of the things that Brooke says.
She also talked the reminder that you people don't understand always.
Well, in our year of recovery, that first year, I was called into the counselor's office all the time because I was failing most of my classes. And of course, you know, at that age, I really couldn't tell them what the problem was. But, you know, that was kind of the culmination of everything that had happened. And by the time I was in 9th grade, I was on the honor roll and, you know, doing wonderfully well.
We all experience that sense of loneliness, of fear, of guilt, of what's going to happen in the future.
And nobody else is living through this but me.
Right.
There's a great deal of pain, a great deal of misunderstanding, and a sense of isolation. I was never not provided for at all. I always was fed, I always was put to bed, I always had shelter and clothes and school and everything. So any of the negative feelings that I had, I felt guilty for. Because I felt I could never complain about anything, because anything that I complained about was met with, well, you're fed, aren't you? Yes. You're put to bed, you're taken care of, what do you have to complain about? And so then the pain that's there is it's almost a self-inflicted sort of a pain, because you cannot believe, I was always seeking to make it right, to make it better, to be a better girl. I always thought I was the bad girl and it was always my fault. I went through the gamut of feelings, you know, the anger. Then you try, well, all right, my anger's not going to work. I'm the bad person, you know, and I know it's all my fault, so I will be better. But anytime you're better, it doesn't help at all either. And I tried to get my mom to stop drinking, and she did not want to listen, because it was not her decision, and she didn't want to. And I was trying to find a way to make her want to, which was impossible. I called my godmother, who was living with us temporarily, and I had said, you know, that I can't live like this anymore. It's not possible. There's too much at stake as far as everything. I talked to my dad, and I said that I would live with my father if my mother wouldn't stop drinking. Now, I did not want to live with my father, and I knew she didn't want me to, nor did she knew that I didn't want to. So we had to end up intervening, you know, through intervention, and which was a very, you know, here was a woman who I'd listened to all my life. I mean, this was just before I entered in high school. And all of a sudden, I was the one making the plans. I mean, the plans. The roles had to be reversed, and the games that were played were so intense that I so easily fell into them, you know, and I believed everything she said, and every time she'd say, it's going to be different, I'd believe her, and you know, it would last for maybe a couple of days, and then all of a sudden, the next fall would be even that much more intense, you know. And it was the times of irrational behavior, and the Christmases where nothing, you know, was under the tree, and you realized that Santa Claus was maybe didn't want to come to your house that night for some reason, or the embarrassment, the trying to justify and trying to stick up for your mother or your parent, and then how socially acceptable it was. See, with alcohol, that's the difficult part about it, is it's so prevalent and so socially acceptable. And my mother was obviously a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of a drinker, but she was also very funny. So everybody loved it. Oh,
is it life of the party type? Yeah.
Everybody loved her, and isn't she funny? And she's the one to take the risks and invite her to the party. She's great. And the sad thing about it is, well, the great thing was she was as great sober as people thought she was when she was drinking.
So the feelings of anger, why is this happening to me? Feelings of guilt. Some of the
well, the anger was not as so much why is it happening to me, but why is she doing this? when I respect her so much? Why is she doing this? She set herself up to be such a person to look up to, and here she is being the epitome of the antithesis of that. So the anger at feeling so guilty, because but the belief in being guilty. And the belief in being guilty is still with me. And I think it'll always be with me, because if, God forbid, there's a slip-up in some way, then the tendency for me to feel guilty about that again is going to be right there, because it's a very powerful emotion. And it's probably one of the easiest outs, maybe it's self-punishing or something like that, but that's where the guilt was originated from, because you feel that I knew I mattered to her, that I was the number one. Now the thing is, I was the only one that could make a difference.
The perception that that it's socially acceptable to be using alcohol, and then to the extreme that to admit to a problem, the stigma that used to be, I'm sure that became a kind of a barrier in your situation too, at least on your mother's part. How was it in those days in that regard?
That was probably one of the most difficult aspects about it, because I think some of the resistance that I was getting from her was that she was Brooke Shield's mother, you know, and to have a problem or a dependency and have to grapple with it is enough. But then to not be anonymous, or to not have the anonymity that one would need just to recover within one's own realm, you know, that's where I really felt my hands were tied. And there was a problem that resulted from it, and it was because I was very unaware. You know, I was a kid, I didn't know what to do. So I went to the first place that I could think of, you know, that I was met with. And it helped, but it was not easy. And I mean, all through it. And the worst part about it, I think the whole thing was when the treatment, the first part of the treatment, which is, I know, a continuing process, was finished. I was more obnoxious at home than I had ever been in my life. I was so horrendous that I was surprised at myself, because I thought, you should be thankful. Mom's home. She's made a big move in her life. There is no more, you know what it means to be an enabler. You know what it means to do this. That part is understood. We can start new now. And I was a brat. I talked back more. I resisted more. And there was something in me that was trying to subconsciously pay her back or something.
You were striking out at her.
And I was mad at myself. I thought, God, why are you doing this again? What are you doing now? And it took me, then it was my turn. I had to be re-educated too, and I wasn't ready for that.
No,
but then it was
think you needed
switched.
it?
Of course I didn't know. Me? Need it? Right. That was the same thing. And then I saw myself falling into the same trap. The same type of resisting, and then realizing that it was my turn, and I had to too. And
where did you get involved in a support group?
I went through the final stage of the program where my mom was.
Through the family program, which is so important in treatment. And River Park we started that many years ago because families really, as you were describing what you were feeling, they need some guidance to deal with their own reaction.
Exactly. See, the problem is the sustaining of it, And I think that just as easily, as the problem can keep going, and you can keep covering it up, and you can it's not until you realize how great it is to be alive that's when you want to start sustaining that new set of rules in your life.
Could you, going back again, because, and I'm thinking of some particular people that I've had experience with, and their trauma and frustration with some of their feelings, and I noted in in your book, which, by the way, we're going to strongly recommend to people. I just think it's a well done book and a good guide for anyone, and surely for young people. But in there you referred to the fact that during these traumatic times of your mother's active alcoholism, that your rest was interrupted in the middle of the night, that you really didn't know you hated to come home from school because you didn't know what you would see. And I can relate to that, because in our family, my daughter's experienced much of that because of my own problems. But can you elaborate on a little bit to what were some of your feelings at that time?
Well, it's like living in complete uncertainty. It's a continuous everything you do, you don't know if it's going to be the wrong thing or the right thing, and you're always striving. And I used to say that I wish I could just live with my mom from about 7 in the morning until about 8:30 when I went to school, because that was fine. And the day was fine because I was not home. But I knew that the minute 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rolled around, I was going to have to go home, and what was I going to be met with? You know, I did not know. And being afraid to have your friends come over to your house because you never know what's going to happen, and knowing that you could handle the brunt of it. I mean, I remember I was awakened one night, I didn't know what time, and my girlfriend and I were forced to come out in the middle of the room and just sit face to face with one another. I mean, it was absurd. It had nothing to do with anything. And I knew if I had to do it by myself, I would say, well, this is just a part of it, I'll sit here and then I'll go. But I was so embarrassed because I didn't want my little girlfriend to get the wrong idea, because I knew that my mom was such a terrific person that I wanted her to see that side of her. You know, and then I was never physically abused. And that even gave me more guilt, because if I'd at least been, you know, hit or something, then that would give me reason to say something, or I'd have a bruise to prove it or make her feel guilty. And you know, I didn't, in a way, in a sick sort of a way, I didn't even get that, you know, so there's a feeling of constant, you're walking on eggshells, and you see the whole system all around you start to slowly break down. You know, the relationships break down, the lies start, and you don't know what is right.
It gets so confusing because the nature of the disease is the minimizing, the lying, not a moral thing, but it just becomes the cover-ups, the alibying, and the lack, and the denial. The denial.
Well, it's very funny if you look at. There's two things I want to say. One, if you look at, in psychology I read that the steps towards death. And it starts off with denial, and then it goes on to different steps, and it ends up at you know, an acceptance where you give up.
You accept the reality of the situation.
Or you, in the negative sense, before help comes, you give up in the sense of you accept it as a problem, and you say, well, I'm just an alcoholic, that's it. And there's a flip side of that. If you must reach that to say, yes, I'm an alcoholic, I need help, or I'm an alcoholic and that's all there is to it and I'm just going to keep drinking. You know, so you have to fight both ends. The problem is people don't realize that it is a disease, and that it is a chemical dependency that is not, I mean, it's usually met with, she drinks a lot or he drinks a lot. And that's what I mean, when you're completely surrounded by the social aspect of it, that's when it's even that much more difficult to fight.
The early days of people would come over to the house to visit, and the explanation would be that mother was upstairs with a headache. She wasn't up there with a headache, she was up there drunk, and out of misguided love, they were hiding it, when true love would be to do as you did, to get the person out and get them some help, because if they don't get help, there's only one end to it.
And it's interpreted not as love in the beginning.
That's right. You're expressing more love, people think, by being the enabler, as I hear you saying you did a first-class job of. Am I right?
Very much so.
But when you take that step to bring about an opportunity for the individual to do something.
Well, what you're saying is, I love you as a person that I know you really are, minus any exterior forces, you know, minus any alcohol. And then you're saying, I don't love this other you, this fake you, which you can say. The myth about the true person coming out and a person that is, I don't agree with. I do agree with the fact that it takes away some inhibitions of people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their true nature comes out. But what you're saying is, I love you as a person, and I want that person around. I don't want this other intruder around.
Right. You know? I love you, but your actions when you are using are simply not acceptable. The intervention, which people, I think, is one of the great procedures that has come to help us help people. Can you describe just a little, because again, someone wondering what can I do for mother, father, whatever the case might be. It was effective, obviously. Was it, at first, was it a little scary, or?
It was terrifying. It's, first of all, a person has to realize that they are not alone, that they're not the only one feeling this or going through this, that the only way to help is to act and do something about it. And it was, you know, I mean, I had my mom's bag packed. I had tickets ready. I had reservations made, and here I was telling someone who had always planned my life for me, what to do. And but it was extremely effective, and it was that step that initiated the whole process.
And that was the beginning of her coming back. Okay.
The beginning of the beginning.
The beginning, then, of a new life is what the show is all about, and this is what basically you and Terry have experienced. What do you see as being very important to the continuation of you and Terry's recovery now? You went through that period of uncertainty, I suppose testing as to whether or not this was for real, and also the change in your feelings, because your role had changed partly, and where before you were handling a problem, I presume now Terry was beginning to handle her own problem somewhat, so your stature in that regard was reduced somewhat. But having worked through that, thank goodness, what's happening today to reasonably maintain the progress in recovery for you and your family?
Well, the communication is still really open, and that the problem is still acknowledged. That it's not great, the world is peachy keen and we're all just got a new lease on life. Well, we do, but the old lease is still, we're aware of it. Do you know what I mean? That it's
Very
not
true.
something, because you don't want to get a sense of overconfidence either, because that's just not going to help it at all. It's a continuing problem. Alcoholics are always recovering alcoholics.
Right.
And you have to understand that, I think, because it's not just so cut and dry. I should do this more. I continually praise the fact that everything that's good that's happening in our life is directly affected by the fact that Mom's not drinking anymore. And it's that much better, and we can enjoy it together. And now, if we're going to fight, we can fight about things that we can really fight about.
And it's okay to do some fighting.
Right.
Well, what you're describing, Brooke, is what I see so often in people's lives, and it's one of the things we say, that this is a disease that can destroy the total person. It can destroy every element of their life, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and take down with it everyone around them. The reverse of that is that in recovery, you reach the point that when you're well, you're weller than well. You're better off than you were before the disease was ever invaded the family.
You start to appreciate so much more in life that you didn't appreciate before, that you didn't even see before. And it's also, and then you look around you so much more.
Your world has broadened, right?
It's broadened, it's become so much more positive.
So communications is what you would put up as one of the high, and how about?
And I mean, it's, I think probably for us it's hard, and yet we still have to find ways to do it. It's hard because Mom is always Brooke Shield's mother, but that finding groups to talk to keep yourself aware of the nature of what you're dealing with, and to keep the discussion open, whether it's through a group, whether it's through doctors that you feel comfortable with. It's your route. Now is your chance to make the decision of how you want to do it, as long as it's towards the same continuing goal.
And your recognition that it isn't just her problem, it's your problem, and your need to grow in your recovery and your understanding of what, not dwelling, and I guess I'm not one to believe in dwelling forever on everything, but realizing that it is there.
Being conscious of it.
Yeah, right. And expanding our understanding of what it is that we're dealing with. And I think that's one of the good things that's happening, is that in society, and I'd be curious to know what you see among young people, but we believe there is a growing awareness that it is something that can be dealt with, and it's kind of coming out of the closets and being dealt with more. Would you feel that?
As our country itself gets more conscious of being health conscious, I think that's an initiator in being aware of the hazards in general, to those who do not have a dependency, the hazards of alcohol and drugs. And then to take it a step further, I think that we're realizing that it is a problem, that it's not only acknowledging it as a problem, that is hitting younger and younger. I mean, or has been, maybe it's starting to change now, but has hit, the age group is younger and younger. It's not just, older people or people that you consider adults. I mean, it's hitting younger and younger people. That it's a problem that that can be remedied. That although it is a disease, it's a disease that is very often self-nurtured. Do you know what I mean? Which
Right.
means that you have that much more of an opportunity to cure it.
And it is highly treatable.
That's treated, I should
Yeah.
say.
The young people, and we see younger ages, the people we're treating now at River Park are the average age is much younger than when we started many, many years ago. So I think it is, and I don't know, it may be beginning to reverse as people speak out, such as yourself, that there are other ways to deal with life, but
Or it's
I'm very
just
concerned about it.
Or it's just that the problem has always, or has been so often with young people, it's just that it was so hush-hush for so many years that it didn't come out until people were older. And now that it is more aware, there's more awareness on it, about it, then they can start treating it in younger
I think
ages.
that's very true. Tell me, Brooke, you probably have experienced as much stress in your young life. I mean, you built it with good support and with Terry's help and your talents, God-given. You built a tremendous, respectable career, and you're highly appreciated by people. But that doesn't come easy. That you pay a price for that, and there's a lot of stress to it. And yet you have managed to handle those stresses without falling into the chemical way of handling it. What has been the secret or the explanation as to how you have been able to progress in your career? You finished college now, and you're in demand as an entertainer and as an actress. How have you done that?
I think that originally it's because I really firsthand saw the hazards. You know, really saw it, realized that it could very easily happen to me, that just based on heredity and you know, genes could very much be a part of my life. Hating it so much and being so averse to it, that wanting to be different. But also seeing how easy it is to fall into the trap, and how, you know, in college, you know, if I would go out to a party and I'd have some punch, or I'd have a beer, or I'd have something, how I'd start to giggle and laugh and say, well, hey, you know, this is great, I feel fun, you know, this is, you know, my exams, the problems, that's okay, you know, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Then realizing, God, that was so easy to do, and it can just get worse and worse, and seeing friends my own age, being always the one to have to help them, you know, get sicker or take them home or do whatever. And then realizing I didn't want, there was so much that I had offered in just living in general. There's so much that, you know, I wasn't handicapped, I wasn't paralyzed, there was no real pain that was, you know, death, and I was very lucky, you know, I had a home, you know what I mean, and I was able to appreciate that, and I didn't want to miss any of it. I was going to school, I was getting an education, I didn't want to lose out on anything. I knew that the thought of being incoherent really scared me, because I feel like I was going to miss out on something, just life in general. So I reached for other outlets, you know, exercise, really venting of any kind of aggression or stress that I had through dancing or music or exercise, or another focus that was going to make me release some sort of pent-up energy without covering it up or mollifying it through alcohol.
So basically you had become high on life and didn't want to screw it up by frying your brains.
I don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah, life is full, and there's enough in it to make it worthwhile. You have a strong support system. I know your mother Terry is probably one of your best friends, and your guide and so forth. Is that correct? What's her relationship with you today?
Well, it is, if I could say 100% and even be emphatically saying 100% better than it ever has been, due to the fact that she has stopped drinking. Our relationship has always been extremely close. We've been a mother-daughter team, both in a familial circumstance and also in as far as business is concerned, because she's also my manager. She's been my support, but I've had to be her support as well. And our relationship now is that of more honest than it has ever been.
we just are so grateful for your doing this with us, Brooke, and we want you to know that I have 2 daughters that survived the disease, and I think they've turned out to be tremendous people, partly because of it, and I think that's partly true with you, and I think you clearly established the fact that it's great to be alive.
Oh, thank you.
Brooke talked about some things that hit home to me, like the Christmases, and I can remember that some of those we really weren't sure what was going to happen, and the fact that now holidays are a time of family, really we look forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just the whole thing she talks about, the fear of loss. You know, she was fearing like her losing what she had with her mother, and I remember that fear of, in the recovery too, the fear that this is not going to stay, this is going to be taken away, and as the years came, it didn't. It was still there. And even I remember in college when you would call on the phone if you were sleepy and I thought your voice sounded a little slurred, my heart would go, you know, for just a minute. And so I could really relate to her talking about that too, the fear of the loss of what you have accomplished is somehow going to be taken away from you again. It takes a lot of years to where you fall back into that assurance.
The security that
security.
in fact the recovery is going to stick.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Brooke mentioned that she'd gone through family therapy, which the people need to know that this is now available. And
Very important.
Right,
Yeah,
that it isn't
yeah.
just the person that's the user.
It is a treatable illness, and it is an illness. This is not a bad, rotten person. You know, this is an illness, and there's something that can be done about the illness.
And today, what do you think about life today?
It's great. It's great to be alive. What more can I say?
So people have to come to understand that this is a disease that strikes the total family, that it is extremely destructive, but that there is a great deal of help that's available, and if people will just reach out for it, that the only thing they have to lose is the heartache.
It's Great to Be Alive has been a production of River Park Foundation. We urge you to lose the heartache and find the peace. Help is available in your community. Reach out for it.